Hey, and welcome back to the Madagascast, the podcast about Madagascar that is kind of just a video essay series, but I'm not really putting enough effort into the videos, so I call it a podcast. This is episode 2. You do not have to have watched episode 1 to understand what is going on. I was planning to make episode 2 a review of the first 2 episodes, but the plans kind of changed, and you can tell that it took a while for me to make this episode. I'm making a little episode in between what was planned about the character Mort, which is just one of many episodes that will exclusively talk about him and the lore behind him. I also just like an hour ago came home and got my new microphone, which is the first time that I've had a proper microphone. So I'm also using this in between episode to test if that works well. Over the past few weeks, I tried to record this episode twice or so, which didn't really feel right. So I'm just gonna use my script as like a general guideline, but I'm just gonna freestyle what I'm saying today. So the character of Mort is maybe actually the most complex out of all the Madagascar characters, but today we're not gonna talk about his personality. We're just actually looking at why Mort was named Mort. So the name Mort isn't that unusual. It's not his full name, but the name he's usually referred to as. Maybe, someone named Mortimer who goes by Mort as a nickname. But there is a reason why he was named Mort. It's also a nickname, but it's for a different name. Now, I know some of my viewers are French, and maybe some people from European countries. You may already know or have noticed that many languages have words related to death that are similar to the name Mort. The French mort, which means death, is just straight up M-O-R-T, silent T because it's French. I think Spanish and Italian have muerte and morte. Sorry for the pronunciations. And I myself, I'm German, and for us at least, the word murder is just Mord. It's just pronounced as Mort, just like the name. If you're familiar with popular fan theories about Mort, you may already kind of know where this is going. There's a bunch of reasons for this, and I will discuss them in further detail at a later point, but people have been theorizing for quite some time that Mort is some sort of death angel or just the personification of death or the god of death or something like that, mostly due to the lore that was added through All Hail King Julian. But if you haven't heard of it, it's more plausible than you would think. It doesn't really have super big implications on the rest of the series, but still it's a theory that is at least plausible enough to always consider it. Now, that is maybe the reason why he was named Mort, or if we're not going by in-universe lore, and we just go by what may be the actual reason the creators named him Mort, it is likely that it's a combination of just using a simple name. Typically that would be Bob, John, or Joe for a ridiculous character, as well as, which is not too uncommon in DreamWorks or Madagascar in general, just naming cute little things after terrible things like, death or murder. So that most likely the name origin for Mort, which is not really news. Like, a lot of people have assumed this. I, as a kid, even noticed that myself. It really isn't that deep. But, as I already mentioned, Mort is only a nickname. His full name is revealed in All Hail King Julian, and it's revealed to be Mortdecai. Mordecai is also not that unusual of a name. However, in this case, the spelling might be interesting, because usually it's just spelled as Mordecai, sometimes with a CH, but in this case, for Mort, it's Mortdecai. Now, I think I know where they were going with this. This name is actually much deeper than just naming Mort after bad things. However, for the people who only want Mort to be named after death, I also found an explanation that just supports that. If you ignore the name origin of the name Mort entirely, maybe you would notice that the name Mortdecai, especially with the context of him having powers or maybe being death personified, you could make a point that his name with more meaning death, or Mort meaning death, just straight up is death and decay. So Mortdecai, death and decay. But if we go into the actual name origin for Mortdecai, there's two examples that I found that seem to be relevant enough to maybe be the origin, and are also related to the story and Mort's character. Now, I'm gonna start with the more abstract one. So the actual meaning of the name Mortdecai is the follower of Marduk, that being the god in the Mesopotamian religion that protects the town of Babylon, and also is the god of agriculture and justice and creation and magic and a bunch of stuff like that. And instantly when I learned this, I knew where this was going. Mort's full name literally means that he's the follower of Marduk. And who was Marduk? The town protector of Babylon, which may be a parallel to King Julian, or the Julian family and rulers of the Lemur kingdom in general. Also, Marduk is the god of creation, water, agriculture, justice, medicine, and magic. And when we look at like the social structure within the kingdom of Madagascar, the Lemur kingdom, we will notice that the monarch, Julian the 13th currently, he is pretty much responsible for all of those. He uses magic, or thinks he uses magic. He's pretty much responsible for justice and agriculture, water, and creation, if you want to say that as well. Those are all things that Julian ensures by communicating with the sky gods. So all of these make it seem like the name Mortdecai just means that he's a follower of Julian, which is maybe too generalizing, but overall, I mean, it's true, and it's one of the first name origins that you can find when you look it up. So I think it's reasonable to assume that maybe that is the reason why he was named Mortdecai. Also, and this is a bit of a stretch, but the god Marduk is, and this is like half knowledge, so don't trust me on this one, but as far as I understood it, Marduk in the like hierarchy is under the 7 gods who decree, which include the sky gods of the Mesopotamian religion. So the sky gods are maybe also a parallel to the Madagascar sky gods, who Julian probably is the only one who can communicate with them. And now the other name origin for Mortdecai, this one is not really a origin for how that name came to be, but it's more of an instance of a character with that name, or a person with that name, which might have inspired Mort, specifically because the full name reveal, or rather the writers of All Hail King Julian coming up with a full name for Mort, that all came from All Hail King Julian, which introduced most of the crazy Mort lore based on memes and theories that have been part of the franchise for a while before that. And now the other name origin is maybe more familiar to some viewers, because it comes from the Old Testament of the Bible. The book of Esther has a character named Mortdecai, who is one of the more important characters of that book. Now, I'm not gonna recap the entire book of Esther. I can't believe I'm saying this, but because of the recurring theme of Judaism and surrounding political ideologies and social problems in the Madagascar franchise, I'm gonna have to talk about most of the Old Testament and most of the New Testament as well at some point. Today is not that day yet, but basically the main big parallel between Mordecai from the Bible and Mort from Madagascar is that Mordecai is a Jew living in Persia, and it's kind of also about the struggle of the Jewish living in Persia at that time. And similarly, Mort, the Mort family, the Mort clan, whatever we want to agree on in the end, they are, at least to some extent, enemies of the kingdom of Madagascar and of the Julian royal family. And maybe their, or Mort's, struggle to live in said kingdom is a parallel to the Jews living in Persia at that time in the Book of Esther. And especially the beginning of the Book of Esther reminded me of the first season of All Hail King Julian in general, as well as a specific episode, the episode Viva Mort, that is season 1, episode 8, as the Book of Esther basically starts with the king of Persia, that in our comparison being Julian, having a big party, which would fit Julian, basically just to show off all the cool things he has. And after multiple days, he wants to show off his wife, but she doesn't want to be showed off like a trophy. And at the end of the day, the king is looking for a new wife. Now, Mordecai, hiding their Jewish identity, encourages Esther to apply for the position of the Persian king's wife, and yeah, she ends up becoming the queen of Persia. At this point, they're still hiding their Jewish identity, similar to how Mort is hiding his intents, as well as his identity as the god of death, whatever he is in the end. And now Mordecai hears two soldiers of the king plotting to overthrow the king, and he goes and tells the Persian king about that, and he's credited for it, and it ends up being a factor to him being a good guy even though he is not Persian and he is a Jew or whatever. Now this is similar to episode 8, in which Abner and Becca are planning to kill Julian, and while Mort is not responsible for stopping their planned assassination, he is still, well, the follower of the king, and he is the only one that's not found out, even though he was part of the revolution. Of course, he apparently had no idea, but the point still stands. He is still living an undercover life, and him helping the king, even though he's an enemy, ends up saving him, or at least in some way being a very positive factor for him in the future. So the whole thing about the Mort clan or family struggling to live under the rule of the Julian family is, at the very least, foreshadowing for future revelations about Mort's character and true identity. So yeah, that's basically it. I don't know if all, or honestly even any of these, are the real true origins of the name, but I think these are at least plausible explanations for his name, and the really strange reveal of his name having been Mordecai and not Mort all along. And I'm relatively confident that at least the origin for the name Mort is correct, and more or less confident that they at least tried to go with one of the two origins for Mordecai that I went with. Yeah, that's it. I'm trying to get this one out as fast as possible. I can't really tell yet, but I'm recording on December 12th, 2023. I'm hoping it's releasing this year. There's a chance that it won't release this year, but at the very least, maybe I can get it done by January. Now, with the new mic, I shouldn't have to spend 3 weeks just editing the audio for it to sound still terrible, but a bit better. And aside from that, if you have any idea why the hell in the episode Daddy Julian Mort is named Prince Falcon, please let me know.